The history of the watershed, unlike other parts of New Jersey, is fairly recent. The first visitor of consequence that would set the stage for all that followed was the Wisconsin Glacier that would mill and grind the ridges and valleys for thousands of years. Retreating 10,000 years ago, the ice sheet left vast deposits of sand and gravel, filling the valleys with rich agricultural soils. Today's river drainage of the area was established by the meltwater from the glacier. Native American hunters and gatherers arrived soon after, becoming the valley's first farmers, planting corn, beans, and squash. When an area's resources were exhausted, they would pack up and move their villages to newer, unexploited locations. Their numbers, estimated to be never more than 20,000, caused minimal environmental impact. Known as the Lenape, their entire world would disappear with the coming of European settlers. European diseases and European concepts of land ownership decimated the native Lenape, who would be almost entirely gone from the valley by 1800. Early European settlement of the valley lagged behind the rest of New Jersey. Almost no European presence other than trappers seeking the fortunes of the beaver fur trade were recorded till after 1700. The abundant flat farmland available to the south and east, closer to the urban settlements of New York and Philadelphia, made the dark woods of the Paulins Kill a distant second choice for settlement. The lure of cheap land and abundant resources eventually brought settlement into the river valley. The Dutch traveled south following the Wallkill River from Kingston, New York, building the Old Mine Road on the way, and tended to settle in the northern sections of the Paulins Kill Valley. From William Penn's Philadelphia, Palatine German immigrants traveled to the valley, seeking farmland and a new way of life. These immigrants had suffered greatly from endless European wars, religious and political persecution, and crop failures and famine brought about by the Little Ice Age. They did not find life easy. The valley was covered by a vast forest that needed to be cleared before being farmed. Winters were harsh, European crops did not do well, and conflict with the Native Americans boiled over into the French and Indian Wars of the mid-1700s. But they endured and adapted. Their descendants would lay the groundwork for the further development of the farming communities of Warren and Sussex County. The early settlers found that the fertile soil and cooler climate of the Paulins Kill Valley was conducive to growing grains, including wheat, barley, and oats. However, raw grains have little value except to feed cattle and horses. The farming communities would turn to an ancient method, water power, to grind their grains to flour. During the spring floods, flat-bottom boats would transport the finished flour downstream to urban markets. It was the power of the river that brought the days of pioneer subsistence farming to a close. Water-powered mills anchored dozens of fledgling villages throughout the watershed. Knowlton, Marksboro, Stillwater, Balesville, Lafayette, Blairstown were just a few of the villages that saw their fortunes blossom as they added a blacksmith shop and a general store, schools, pharmacies, and churches, transforming these villages, these mill sites, into thriving towns. The variety of tasks asked of the water wheels of the day were varied: grinding grain to flour, sawing trees to dimension lumber, carding wool to usable fiber, driving hammer mills to work iron, and pumping air with the bellows to create blast furnaces, crushing gypsum to plaster and limestone to lime. Falling water, driving the wheel, did it all. Given the watershed's more northerly location and harsher climate, farmers found it difficult to compete with fruit and vegetable production in the milder climates of central and southern Jersey areas. Although almost every fruit and vegetable had its day, farming grains would come to support northwestern New Jersey's biggest success, milk production. By the 1900s, dairy production of fresh milk would dominate farming in the Paulins Kill Valley. And those cows needed to be fed. Silos full of alfalfa and corn silage became common sights throughout the valley. Every day, dozens of milk trains loaded with hundreds of 10-gallon milk cans rushed milk to local creameries. Throughout suburban New Jersey communities, the local milkman put glass-bottled fresh milk on doorsteps every morning. According to legend, black and white Frisian Holstein cows were more numerous than people in Sussex County. The boom of the milk industry lasted well into the 1900s. The labyrinth of railroads that gave life to this industry would come to contribute to its demise. Long-haul trains from the Midwest and Northeastern states would make local creameries unprofitable. Suburban sprawl and escalating land prices, high-cost labor, and mechanization would close the traditional family dairy farms by the dozens during the 1900s, leaving only 64 registered dairies currently operating in New Jersey. Farm acreage has become prey to absentee land developers who often care little for the soil and the surrounding community's environment. Overused application of pesticides and fertilizers, used to promote increased crop yield, have damaged land and water alike. Often the last crop encouraged to sprout from neglected and abused former farms has been a fast food strip mall or a McMansion housing development. Abandoned farmland held for speculation is often left to invasive plants, which become difficult or impossible to remove. This dismal future need not be. Other alternatives can still preserve and protect the Paulins Kill Watershed. Farming can once again contribute a desirable lifestyle to our communities.